always sitting here next to you. Good morning and welcome to the, a lot of sound there. Welcome to this meeting of the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors. As we always do, we will start with invocation. We have Luke Myers from the Hope Church of Fort Worth Family Ministry, Associate Pastor. And Luke, if you'll lead us in the invocation.
Thank you very much for this invitation. Let us pray. Almighty God, we praise and thank you. We praise you for your love for us, how you know and care for every one of us. We thank you for all the men and women who have faithfully served in this county for years. We thank you for your protections and your blessings. We pray that you would bless this meeting, that you would give insight and discernment to Chairman Rick, to fellow board members, and all those making presentations and key decisions. Your word says, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking. But when you ask him, be sure that your faith is in God. According to your word, I ask for wisdom for all the board members, for those who are making decisions, that the appropriate steps and decisions will be made in this meeting that would bless Texans and the residents of Tarrant County, both now and in years to come. God, we pray that you would block any evil, that you would not allow it to have any footholds among us. And we pray that you would be honored in this meeting, that there would be unity in this meeting. God, we thank you for our county, for our state, for our nation, and we pray that Tarrant County might be a county of peace, full of goodness, fairness, righteousness, and justice. And I pray this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Eric Morris, lead us in the pledges.
Please join me in reciting the pledge, first to the U.S. flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
You may be seated. Roll call.
Rick Barnes,
Present.
Matt Bryant.
Here.
Wendy Burgess. Fred Campos.
Here.
Eric Kreil. Kezia Farrar. Eric Morris.
Do we have
Gloria
a quorum?
Pena. Callie Rigney.
And Callie Rigney. Hi, Callie. We do have a quorum. I really have no announcements. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the board. It's frankly good to be in a position where we can have regularly scheduled meetings and not a bunch of specially called meetings. So it's a good position to be in. Our first report is from Dr. McIlvaine, taxpayer liaison. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Do you think it's time to talk about watershed events? Good morning, Chairman Barnes, Callie Rigney, our secretary, distinguished board members, and Joe Don Bobbitt, our chief appraiser. This morning I'd like to draw attention to what watershed events mean in our society. If you'll recall, last week a rising senior from North Texas in track and field distinguished himself by setting a world record at the 800-meter run. Just recently, a relatively unknown thoroughbred horse ran from the back of the pack to win the Kentucky Derby, and then repeated that act again last week with notoriety and with a female trainer, which is really rather unheard of in the racehorse business, of course. Those are what is known as watershed events, and I relate that to my report for this week. I could say a lot about this data, or I could say very little. So I'm going to trim it down just enough to draw your attention to the amount of miscellaneous referrals to my office in the early part of the calendar year. that signifies folks trying to make decisions but having difficulty perhaps accessing data because the online sources could not necessarily confirm what they needed. And that caused them to have a different kind of referral than normally. Normally at the first of the year, we're talking with our patrons about homestead exemptions, how to apply for those. We're talking with them about how to possibly set up for a protest. But this year, they were more concerned about some of the more mundane sources of information that they couldn't find online to confirm what they were thinking in order to make their decisions. Now that took place through really February and March. Now you can see it's not yet quite typical, because with a watershed event, things don't settle in quite so neatly as they might, but they are beginning to settle in because now we're seeing more protest efforts, more questions and concerns about those again, and certainly more homestead events. So there's a lot to be said about that. I'm sure Mr. Bobbitt in his report will cover quite a bit in great detail. But just to know, watershed events are interesting to statisticians, and it's something when it's a huge change event, we know that things don't normalize as quickly as everyone would like. And so I will tell you that our typical inquiry was often one of a little frustration, but coupled with quite a bit of patience, actually more than I might have thought I might have been patient myself with. So people were very understanding that we were undergoing some rite of passage, if you will, to improve our systems. And that was important to them too when they had that information to deal with. So just know these are not normal times. There is an interesting saying I used to use a lot. The Chinese used to say, "May you live in interesting times," and this is one of those interesting times for us all. And we will survive. Most of our referrals have been quite satisfied once they knew that down the road, if not in the middle of March, they could access the information they were needing to make more fine-tuned decisions. So I congratulate you for working, as I say, around the corner and down the road for sustainable change. That's incredibly important for the future of this county and its taxpayers and its processes to come. So I want to congratulate you. Any questions? Thank you for the job that you hold.
Thank you. And anybody that knew enough about that horse to win on it, come see us afterwards. Because you may be able to predict future values of properties very well. I wish I owned that horse right now. Next thing on the agenda is report from Chief Appraiser.
You go next slide. So on our conversion, January 9th was the last day of entry into Aumentum. And so for me and most of the staff, I think we're very excited about that, to move on to the new system. We still have some that, don't like change and, would have been happy to stay where they were. But overall, I think we're excited and we're moving forward. Planned go live was March 3rd. We were able to go live on February 2nd. Internally, I don't think we announced it immediately because we wanted to make sure that everything was working and calculating and all the major pieces were operating like they're supposed to before we told everybody, hey, it's turned on, and just in case we had to reset anything. But the new system does balance to Aumentum. We've been able to export data reports to the tax office. So we've been sending 2025 roll corrections on a semi-monthly basis to the tax office. The tax office is able to take those and consume those. And then we were able to actually send out a 2026 test file, and that was also able to be loaded into the system and looks correct. And so already I think we're in a better place than we were 10 years ago, because I think that was one of the major challenges. The tax office we couldn't get the data out, and they couldn't absorb the data. So now I think the major hurdles that we faced in the last conversion, we've already kind of cleared those hurdles, and we've proven that it works. So on our original planned go-live timeline, we converted 2025, we've converted 2026, and then we converted all of the prior years. Our pricing models, we have about half of those done. Commercial, we need some basic development work with True Prodigy, or we need to change our process. We're leaning towards development work with the product. With what it appears, we have our schedules that are more detailed. Our commercial income schedules are more detailed than most of the other counties. And so we're able to break it up by size range and age range, whereas most counties just have the property type and basically class of construction. So if it's a Class A commercial building or a Class B, and that's about as far as they break it up, and that's really all the system currently supports. So we want to break it up by decade and by area range. With web portals, those are turned on and are working. We still need a little bit of work on the TNT portal for the entities, but overall it's working. We just need to set everything up, get all the entities logged in. Whoops. There we go. That helps. Thank you. Technology. So the web portals are working. Appraisal notices were sent out. We still have maybe a few thousand properties left that notices will go out on. On phase 7, we're kind of early in appeals cycle, but we do have, I think, all the existing protests that have been filed. We have them scheduled, and we're scheduled through like July 3rd. So that's everything basically scheduled and in the books, but we know there's going to be reschedules. We know there's going to be other things, and so that'll all take place, but that kind of gives us a 2 or 3 week period for all that stuff to kind of take place and for a place for it to land. Certification, that will happen July 24th. That's a Friday. We have to certify by July 25th, which is Saturday, but we'll do it on that Friday. August 7th, we'll create the New Year layers in that ballpark. We want to make sure that everything works like it's supposed to in the new system. And then on October 15th, we'll have a retrospective. So we'll sit down with the vendor and see how the system went, how the conversion went, and any lessons learned. We'll go over those and kind of document them. And so the next few slides, we're going to kind of show our focus on customer service and trying to be a kinder, friendlier appraisal district. So this is from April 30th to when I pull the report. And as you can see, up till May 15th, the protest deadline, the volume of the blue bars are the volume, the number of people, and that relates to the left bar, and so May 15th, we had roughly 1,700 people come in and see us on that day. And so it's quite a bit of traffic. And then the red line is the average wait time. And so on the 14th and 15th, we got up to around 16-minute average wait time. And so overall, that's pretty phenomenal. Because if you remember a few years back, we're talking 2 to 4 hour wait times that people were encountering. And so the staff have come up with a lot of good ideas. They've implemented that stuff. And so when you let the staff do what they see and what they want to do, they're able to resolve things and try to get the taxpayers through in a faster, more efficient method. We're trying to not just make people mad because of bureaucracy. So the staff have done an outstanding job with that. This is phone calls, and this is in seconds. So on May 14th and the 15th, we were reaching close to about a 2-minute wait time on phone calls. But overall, we typically run just under a minute for the average wait time for us to answer the phone. And then this is aggregate volume. So on May 14th and 15th, we were exceeding 2,400 phone calls per day on top of our 1,700 people that were coming in to see us. And now we've dropped back down to more of an average, closer to 600 per day. And so that's much more doable. So this is a comparison of last year versus this year, and owner and agent, and then by property or by property type. And so most of the categories from one year to the next are pretty close. There's not much of a change. The red box I highlighted, this is where we're seeing most of the increase. Basically 40,000 additional protests have occurred for residential agents. And so it's not unexpected. We're kind of seeing that same kind of trend across the entire state. But overall, so last year we had 271,000 protests that were filed, that were protests, not motions that kind of come after the fact, but things that were filed during the tax season. So far this year, we've already exceeded 299,000. We'll still get some more in. The future protest deadline column, those are the number of properties that their protest deadline has not passed, or there's some other category. But anyways, it's a handful of properties that we know or maybe haven't been noticed yet. So those properties are ones that could potentially still file a protest.
Hey, Joe Don.
Yes, sir.
Would be interesting to break down, if we're looking at the number of agents, protests filed, I'd like to see the numbers on 500,000 to 5 million and then 500,000 and
Like,
below.
yeah,
and see
category,
how
like
many-
price breakdown.
Yeah, it would be real interesting to see if our agents are meeting the needs of the lower priced houses,
Okay.
if they're going out and chasing it.
Is 500,000 where lower price houses? I think so.
No, I don't know.
I
would just like to
have
s-
a discussion on what
Yeah.
lower price house is.
I mean, I can break it up just by every 100,000 or whatever, or
Yeah. I appreciate that, Wayne. You're,
I mean, maybe 2 to 3 groups.
okay. We'll go back to the previous slide. The green box. So out of the 299,000 that we have received currently, we have resolved 177,000. So that's 60% that the staff have resolved through our online appeals and through discussing phone calls and emails with the public. And so basically, we're going out of our way. We're trying to resolve these things. We want it to be as efficient as possible. And we're intentionally trying not to be combative in these appeal season.
Hey, Joe Don, I've got the data. McKissick dropped it off to me, and you guys get a huge attaboy. You continue to use the value negotiation button to an incredible amount. I think we're at 36,000 right now, and that's up, I think, about 15% from last year, and the number's going to keep growing. And this is the most efficient way and the most pain-free way for and I'm going to call them customers, for our customers to get their day in court, get their day in front of the group. I mean, getting it online, you got to fight through about 6 signature pages. But again, you guys responded because, people were communicating with me, I can't get to it, or they didn't know to use the legacy portal rather than so I think my opinion is you did a phenomenal job. And the rest of the appraisal districts aren't doing this. It's shocking, but job well done.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The staff have done an outstanding job. And there's lessons learned every time with conversion. Some of the tools that we had didn't quite work integrating with the new system like we had hoped. But some of it, we've worked through a lot of it, and we have plans going forward to make it even better than what it is right now.
Well, and then, I mean, what we might want to focus on for next year is how do we promote this? How do we promote this? Now, I just, for the good of our taxpayers, it's not going to be the best thing for agents. It's going to chew into their numbers, but I think our customers will really appreciate it. And I don't know how to better get the word out there. Maybe through Fred Campos, his little YouTube. Again, any way we can get the word out there, let's double this.
Actually, he does get the word out because he goes and gives presentations throughout the county about what we're doing. And I like to attend them because every time I do, I learn something new. But I think as a board, if we can help him find those locations, little groups, that's what I do. I call them and I say, I have a group that would like to hear your presentation. So we as a board can also find places for him to give his presentation and then spread the word.
Yeah, if anybody requests, like UC would go to Lions clubs and different civic organizations, Rotary, and so we'd go to those organizations, give a presentation. And so if we know somebody wants us to come out, we'll come out and give an overview of the property tax system or exemptions that are available, or just kind of, we'll tailor it to whatever they are interested in.
If you could think of doing a road show next March,
Yes, sir.
I think it would be very helpful. I think it would drive the numbers through the roof.
Yes,
I
sir.
already got him scheduled for some stuff.
I'd just like to say job well done on the wait times. I go to my doctor's office, I'm the only one waiting, and it takes 20 minutes to get in, so excellent job on that.
Yes, sir. We also pulled, I think McKissick pulled this data from the 2024 operations survey. It's a survey the comptroller does. And so 24 is the most recent one that's been published. And we compared the other large metro counties, total number of protests filed in 24, how many were resolved informally, and how many went to the ARB. And so then we were able to determine our percent that we resolve. And so we're sitting at 98%. Our next closest competitor is Bear County at 85, then Harris at 81. And then you get down to 13% in some counties. And so we and staff are very proud of the fact that we're able to resolve as many.
Joe Don, can you say who McKissick is?
Well, the residential director, Brian McKissick, has been helpful with a lot of the process changes and the data we pulled.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sounded a lot more formal when it's just McKissick. You said like McKissick and McKissick, it sounded really.
Like a law firm or something?
Yeah.
I have a question. 98% being a lot higher than the other counties, you're not just picking numbers out of the air, there's evidence to back this, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, but it's also, an opinion is an appraisal is an opinion of value. And so we're taking the approach that that opinion has some leeway in it. We have evidence to back up our number that we initially send out, but at the same time, we don't go inside most of the homes or most of the properties. There's things that we just don't know, and the homeowner knows their property better than we do. And so if they can come in and show us something that we're not aware of, or have other sales that we're not aware of, we'll take that in consideration and make them a reasonable offer. Next slide. Oh, look clear, okay. They're in the packet, there's also, I think our investment report. Yeah. Which, no, that's fine. But investment report, I don't know if you have any questions regarding it, but it's just we have a lot of our money invested into either money market account. We've moved some into the tax pool, risk pool, or the pool that invests money. It's fairly liquid and fairly safe. There it is.
Very small. Even on here.
Can you zoom in on the top part? So in our interest checking account, we have, we earned $971 in interest. On our First Financial Money Market account, we earned $143,000 in interest. On our Origin Bank Money Market account, $63,000 in interest. In our tax pool account, we earned $2,000. That's the smallest pool that we have of money. We just put that in there recently, and that's kind of a new for us, and so that may grow over time as we get more comfortable with it. We are complete with our MAPS review. I think I sent the board an email. We received unofficial approval from our MAP auditor that everything was complete, and that we'll get 100% when it comes out officially, either in October or January. It's late in the year when it comes out. The other thing we have, Brad Patrick, our Director of Administration, he received an award from TAAD for excellence in teaching. He's been doing basically a personal property class for years for the state, and so we're excited to have that award go to Brad and for him to be recognized.
Yay, Brad.
So I think that's it.
Questions? Comments?
I'd just throw one comment out there. Obviously, we'll talk more about this in the IT committee meeting, but there's more than a dozen or 24 things that happened, required late nights. Brian's group did an amazing job. You saw the stats and all that. We just can't say enough of some of the things. I mean, right down to getting an API from the vendor and writing some code to fix things as they go live. Just kudos. This went well on the CAMA stuff and it's continuing to do so.
Let me elaborate on a couple of things. One is the transition. I don't know if anybody in the room understands the importance of getting away from Momentum more than Fred and I, in particular, and Wendy and others that have had to work with that system. We were the only people working with that system, which ought to tell you a lot about that system. And so it was very, very good to get away from that. January 9th was a big day. But when you look at the schedule, the fact that he was able to get us through the full transition then by February the 2nd, that's also a huge, huge reality that we made a really positive change. So our staff and the tax office and the staff out here has been working together throughout this entire process, and it's actually going very, very well. I talked to our staff in the tax office without Joe Don's staff in the room, and they still say that. So that's a very good thing to say. The customer service scores, I agree with the customer service. There's something wrong with government when government has zero desire to be good in customer service, and most of government has zero desire to be good with customer service. And if you don't agree with that, just go over here to the DMV office anytime and just try to go use it. And so I have really pushed this with the tax office, and Joe Don's pushing it out here, and I think it's people are seeing an improvement with what's going on with Tarrant County in the tax business. I do think it's interesting, and one of we talked about wanting to get the appraisals up. There's the other side of that reality in that when that many people are appealing, even in a freeze year, I continue to question the reality of what's going on with appraisal districts, not just here, but across the state, in that they can be wrong up to 98% of the time, and we think we're doing good. There is no other profession in the world that can say that other than the weatherman. If the weather guy told you this morning that it's going to rain and you brought an umbrella and it doesn't rain today, you say, oh, good, it didn't rain. Whenever they tell you your house is worth a certain amount and you go argue about it, and 98% of you get to say, oh, yeah, well, I was right, you were wrong, I don't know how we say that's good. And so I think that we need to continue to challenge the process, not just here. It's not a Tarrant County issue as much as a statewide issue, and I know the legislature is going to be addressing that in this next session pretty heavily, maybe more than they ever have. And then congratulations to Mr. Patrick. We don't recognize when Tarrant County people do well near enough, but I do think in this business we are we're the top of the list. Those other counties that are on that list, I wouldn't ever want to be a part of the appraisal board in Harris
County.
Bear, Travis, Dallas, any of those counties. Despite your worst times in Tarrant County, they're still better than any of those counties. And so, and whenever we have an opportunity to say thank you to a staff member, we ought to do that. And so, greatly appreciate the work you're doing out there. I run into our staff out at conferences. We don't always know we're both going, and then we see each other in the hallway. We're like, oh, well, you're here too. So it's good to see our folks doing really well. Any other comments on that report? Seeing none, committee reports. IT committee, is there, Fred?
Something?
You know, I think Joe Dunn covered it in just the last little things, just that we're still got 3 or 4 more phases. I do want to say, board and public, and go look at the control room box. Everything's cleaned up, looks awesome. Everything's labeled. It's truly amazing. I don't want that to fall, good job on that, because that was a major project as well. No, we've already pretty much covered it.
So we got machines in there that are not, they're just sitting there, they're no longer just sitting there not plugged in?
Boy, I wish we had before and after.
Yeah. ARB committee?
Yeah, we had a couple of items that are showing up on the schedule today. One, we had some appointments, and then we had a secretary position decline. So we had to go back to the stack of applications, and we found another good one that we hope will follow our recommendation for secretary. And then we received some really good data on per diem costs and suggestions of how we might change those. And as a group, we really gave it a good look, but at this point in time, what we've recommended is that we just not make a change. And we'll be happy to discuss, during. I don't think now's the time to discuss.
We'll have some business later. Okay, budget finance, we are having a budget presentation today. Is any comments?
Yeah, I'll do just a kind of a quick little rundown. So the Budget Committee initially met on May 13th. Present for that meeting was myself, Ms. Burgess, Ms. Pena, Mr. Bobbitt, each of the department heads. Mr. Morse was unable to attend, however, it's my understanding that Mr. Bobbitt met with him to review the budget and provide feedback. During that May 13th meeting, each department head presented their proposed budget. Committee members had the opportunity to ask questions, provide feedback, discuss potential adjustments, and based on those discussions, a revised budget was prepared and distributed via email to the committee on May 27th for review. Following that review, the updated budget was provided to the full board. The proposed budget does reflect a 4.05% increase over the 2026 adopted budget. I do think it's worth noting, though, that included in that increase are two significant IT capital items, approximately $500,000 for an emergency backup power system and approximately $330,000 for the initial phase of the hardware replacement cycle. Staff has advised us that the hardware replacement program is intended to establish a regular replacement schedule that supports efficiency and cybersecurity best practices. The committee discussed the possibility of funding these items through the committed funds following the completion of the 2025 audit. Staff did advise us that once that audit is complete, which I believe is at this month or next maybe?
We think it's gonna complete July.
Okay.
But it could be late July.
Okay,
it'll
so
be presented on the
sometime over the summer, that the board would have the opportunity to evaluate if that is a better option or an option at all. While removing these items from the budget would reduce the overall budget increase to approximately 1.55%. Staff did note that it would not reduce the amount requested from the taxing entities because the associated use of those committed funds would also be removed, so resulting in no net change to the funding request. The proposed funding request to the entities reflects a 3.61% increase over the prior year, driven primarily by election-related funding needs, including a proposal to begin setting aside funds for the 2028 election, along with several technology-related investments. I know we have a presentation today, so I won't go into too much, any further detail, but I would like to thank all the department heads, staff working through this process. You all were super responsive to all the emails and questions, so I just appreciate your hard work.
Questions? Seeing none, there's a board policies committee. I'm assuming there's been no meeting. We don't have anything to talk about on board policies.
Yeah, I was just gonna let you know, we're not on the agenda, there's no meeting, but we will have a meeting between now and our next board meeting, so.
Perfect. All right, public comments. I see one sign up, Chandler Crouch. One sign up. All right.
Just wanted to, you're waiting for me, thank you, I was waiting for you. Appreciate the opportunity to get to speak here. Wanted to touch on a couple things. The first thing is the reappraisal plan. I did my best to reach out to all of you through the official channels and reach out to many of you privately. I heard from a few people, and then after I released my video, I heard some character attacks, some innuendos about there might be a problem with some of the stuff I released. I just want you to know, I would love if there's any factual data that I got wrong, if there's anything that you would like to talk with me about so that I can set the record straight, I think the public and myself, we would love to know, because I'm not interested in doing anything other than presenting facts that people need to hear about. So there's that. I also want to mention, Matt, you were, love your comments. I think we've come a long way from the time of coming into this room and it's the board against the public to now, like, let's have a tug of war to figure out how to best serve the public, and the public's going to win. I think it's great. I think it's probably safe to say I've probably promoted the instant answer tool more than any other person on earth, because, you know, Tarrant County is pretty small. But it's a phenomenal tool. I would agree with everything you said. Tarrant County leads the way. And I don't know of another county that makes it as easy for people to protest as Tarrant County. I think it's a great idea. And if there's anything I can do to help with, my door's open. I wanted to also just acknowledge some of my own personal experience. I think that I'm probably also the #1 user of the new software, because I've got a team of people that are on it right this second. I'm on it every day. I'm downloading stuff. We're looking at the data. And I would say, just in general, things have gone remarkably smooth compared to what I feared. There are definitely some things that we've got to learn from. I was super excited to see the retrospective bullet there. There's always going to be ways to improve. If anybody has questions for me, I'd be more than happy to share my experience. But the other stats about customer service, I came down here on May 15th, and it was absolutely remarkable to see top executives out front helping people, like, without making a big deal of it, just like a rank and file employee sitting there, not trying to take protest requests, but actively trying to resolve the value and help them out the door so they don't have to deal with it again. The agent team has been great. Joe Don's been accessible. Everybody in the lobby was kicking butt. On the ARB side, R is what I'll call her. She's been phenomenal. There have been a number of people all over the board. Just wanted to say thank you for all your efforts. Appreciate it.
We'll be sure and get a plaque to R. Yeah. Thank you, Chandler. We have 2 discussion items. These are items.
We have one more public commenter that just signed up.
Okay, okay. I can't even see that far.
Ambika Sharma.
And go ahead.
Ambika Sharma. Yeah, sorry, I didn't know that's how you sign up. So yeah, my name is Ambika Sharma. I have been in touch with Mr. Bobbitt and his team. I was here yesterday learning about some of the data centers and the appraisals. But what I wanted to speak about is kind of what Chandler just said. I want to thank you all in terms of all the protests and how cordial your team had been. I actually called a few times, came here with my mom. I think it was May 13th, and the lines were out the building, but everybody, all the staff were like helping, being very cordial. So thank you for like just giving good service. So I appreciate the sentiment that you said that the government should be doing good service, customer service, or should be applying. But you also said, like, why, even in a year when the appraisals were frozen, why are we seeing so many protests? And so I go back to that notion, which is why this past year, like, the market was down. During COVID, when the market was up, our appraisals went up. And so when market's down, appraisals should also go down. To say that appraisals have been frozen and we did such a good job, I find that intellectually or logically confusing, because the appraisal should follow the market. If the market's down, appraisal should have gone down. So that's probably why, Mr. Barnes, you saw so many people still contesting and protesting, because the appraisals were not in line with the market expectation. So I guess my feedback here is we should follow the market. If the market's down, we should lower the appraisals, not just keep it frozen year over year. Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none, we have 2 discussion items. One is the budget workshop, and one is the discussion of proposed 27-28 reappraisal plan. So these are discussion items. They're not actionable items today. So there are things we can discuss to make this one even a little bit more solid. It's really a presentation of a budget proposal. The budget per se, dollars and cents was not presented early to the public. And so, rather than us discussing it, we're gonna allow the chief appraiser to present it. And then we will, talk about it when we put it on the agenda for the August meeting, formally talk about it when we put it on the agenda for the August meeting. So, Mr. Bobbitt.
Do y'all want to go through the full budget, or do y'all want to go through the slides that Brad prepared? I don't know how detailed y'all want to go.
And do you want to hear the recommendation by the committee, or you want to hear the original budget?
So,
This should be what came out of the committee.
Okay, good.
yeah,
So at least
Do we
we
want to
kinda
start with
know
the
what's-
PowerPoint slides that Brad?
do that.
Okay. It's a little shorter and gets to the point. There. And then Brad, you can jump in anytime. So for 2027, so by the code, like before June 15th, we have to present to the board of directors and to the entities our draft budget or proposed budget. Before September 15th, the board has to we have to have a public hearing and finally adopt a final budget. Then I think the entities have 30 days to draft a resolution if they disapprove of our budget after that point. So this is just our initial, I guess, we've slightly modified it based on input of the committee. And so this is where we're at currently. This will be what gets presented to the entities, and we'll still have a chance to revise it one more time before we adopt it. So for 2027, we're proposing an overall increase of just over 4% from 2026. To the entities, that's a 3.6% increase. We're proposing the use of committed funds that will offset some of the increases, and that's usually for one-time expenses or for the election cost. Overall reduction in budget staff headcount from 204 to 194, and this is a reduction of 22 positions since 2024, and the lowest proposed headcount since 1999.
Joe Don? I'm sure there's an explanation, reduction of 22 positions, but the headcount only went down 10.
From this year.
Oh, got it.
22 since 2024. The highlights, there's been a reduction in overall payroll cost while allowing for a merit increase and planned increases in medical insurance cost. Medical insurance right now is we have a rate lock for a 10% increase. There is an increase in training and travel. For 26, for the current year, one of the conferences that we go to is actually in Tarrant County. Next year, they'll both be out of county, and we'll have to travel. So we'll have increased travel expenses. There's a decrease in the ARB per diem budget based on continued efficiencies, so we're expecting to have less people, less ARB members, and less hearings as we go forward. Just as we try to resolve, we're doing 98% roughly, so with that change, we're trying to reflect that in the budget. Utility cost increase is projected, but could be offset with anticipated change in our off-site location. So we have the ARB annex, which we haven't used since, I guess, 23. And so right now there's an office space in the front of it and a warehouse in the back, and we're paying a decent amount for it. I think $5,000 a month or something roughly in that ballpark. But we're just going to move to a storage unit by itself and not office/storage, and so that cost will go down quite a bit. We're also proposed budgeting a portion of the upcoming 2028 board election for 2027 to split up the cost. So we expect roughly $800,000 per year for the election cost, and so we're putting $400,000 in each budget year to help pay for that cost and kind of even out the payments, since it's an every other year cost. For customer service needs, there's an increase in professional services. We've been using a company called TrueRoll, and so they're able to expedite deed processing and exemptions. And then we'll also have additional need for IT consulting. So we've been using the TrueRoll product to handle exemptions, so they'll help find homeowners that should qualify for a homestead exemption that currently aren't claiming it. So it'll identify those so we can send them a notice and get them to apply for it. It will also audit the ones that have an existing homestead exemption that shouldn't have it. If they've moved or they've passed away or if they have multiple homesteads, we'll find those. And then it helps with an online application tool. And so when we identify people that need to apply or when they buy a new house, they can apply online and it moves into the system almost real time. It's pretty quick for our staff to review those and import them into the system. And so this would expand that to include deed processing. So that way we can process the deeds quicker, get them in so we can make the exemption changes. And then for dues and publications, there would be an increase also attributed to Pro's True Roll tool to expedite processing, because we're also looking at bringing in appointment of agents and protest. So we get a lot of paper appointment of agents forms, and we get a lot of protest that are paper filed. And so this would allow us to scan those, extract the data, even if it's handwritten, it would be able to read that handwriting, extract the data, and then import that into the system and speed up the processing time so we can get people scheduled and get them through the system quicker. Technology needs. We have material, supplies, and services increase for hardware and software upgrades, which includes additions for security and safety. There's a capital outlay that increases for previously planned hardware replacement and a needed emergency backup power improvements. So that includes, the backup power includes a $500,000 expense for basically a gas-powered backup generator. And that's a sliding scale. So that would back up the entire building and keep the servers and everything online, but we may not need the entire building backed up. We've discussed, it's a sliding scale. So as long as we keep the servers up and running, and maybe the front customer service area, if the power's down for more than 3 hours, we can send most people home and work remotely. So we really only need limited areas of the building to really maintain power. And if the power stays out for longer than that, there's a bigger issue.
Joe Don,
Yes, ma'am.
but there is a loss of service if you do that. If we get what we really need, there will be no loss of service.
There would be you wouldn't even know the power went out.
And that's really what our goal should be, is to ensure there's no loss of service. Because what if this happened during the protest season? Then what?
It would be,
It
we'd have to
becomes-
reschedule everything. And
It becomes a crisis, and
Yes,
we
ma'am.
don't need any more crisis. So, I just want to emphasize that because it's projected that we will have the funding to provide something that will maintain the whole building with no loss of service, and I think that should be our goal.
Yes, ma'am.
Jodan, have you explored, I don't know if this is on.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you explored any grants available for this? Because in Colleyville, I think we got like a $250,000 grant for a generator.
We haven't, but that's a good idea.
So, yeah, I mean, apply for anything, and worst case scenario, they say no.
Okay.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
can help us out there.
And also, Joe Don, the current existing generator, isn't it over its shelf life? So we could hit that crisis at any time.
The current one is actually a battery backup. And the overall system, we moved into the building when we moved here a long time ago. We can replace batteries, but the vendor, there's, I think, one guy at that company that still knows how to work that particular system. And so if the overall system goes down, then we're stuck. I mean, we can replace batteries, but we just don't know how much longer. They're no longer really supporting that system. So,
Like Windows 10, no longer supported.
yes, ma'am.
I just have a question. How many times have we lost power, like, in the last 5 years?
I don't know.
Yes, yes.
It's a couple times a quarter.
It's a lot.
And they,
it's quick and it's back up.
and at least they fixed the system, because with the new system, our doors don't automatically unlock anymore.
Yes, yes. The doors stay locked now if we lose power.
Good, stay at work. That's a joke. A joke. The challenge with that is, it's one of those, you can prepare for it all you want to, but you dang sure want it when you need it. And so, Southlake, as an example, has lost power 5 times this spring already as a city, not just parts of Southlake. And so we don't want to become that. And so you don't prepare for it, and then then say, well, you know, we didn't want to spend the money on that one. So. All right.
Yes, sir.
They're on sale at Lowe's today.
All right,
so
all right, good
you
deal.
Go get those gas powered.
This is a comparison of some of the other metro counties. The highlighted yellow part shows if you take out minerals, that we're running about $45 per parcel. And compare that to the other counties, we're the second lowest. So Bear County runs about $38 per parcel. The others are in the 60s. So overall, we feel like we're doing a good job of being fiscally responsible. Granted, there's always room that we could tighten things up, but overall, in comparison to the other county or the other appraisal districts, we feel like we're being reasonable and frugal. Next slide. This is 40-year history of our employee count and our budget. So we started off with 182 employees back in '86. I guess we didn't start off. We started off in like '81. But in 1986, we had 182 employees. And then, so like we're saying, like we've been running over 200 employees for the long time, even back as far as 1991. And so right now we're at 194 is what we're proposing. So with the new technology, with the new Canvas system, we feel like we're starting to see some of the efficiencies that we can be gained. We expect that may continue to some extent, but we don't want to cut too far, because until we get all of our processes kind of remapped for the new system, we don't want to cut too deep and customer service suffer from it.
I want to add too, that was one of the questions that came up in the budget committee, like, are we cutting back too many employees where customer service is gonna lack? And is my understanding that that number, the 194 was a good number, that you felt comfortable
Yes,
being
ma'am.
able to maintain the quality of service that we're currently providing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's where we're at right now, and so we feel comfortable with that. Yes, ma'am.
No, Joe Dunn, we appreciate the, all hands on deck, roll your sleeves up, all the leadership team, and it's, I mean, I hear even Smouse is getting out there and helping.
He helps quite a bit.
But so, no, we really appreciate it because we don't want to overstaff. You know, here it's loud and clear, we don't, it's a sticky wicket. But you guys being capable out front, being visible, I know that kind of leadership really helps the entire team, and it's appreciated.
Yes, sir.
But this probably is a really good time to interject this one piece of information. We came to our budget committee meeting when it was packed out there and parking, there was no parking. So where would we have put those rental cars or whatever those were? There was no parking. Then the room was crowded. So even when we don't have that volume, the room typically stays crowded. But it was so crowded, people were even spilled into where the bathroom area was when I walked. And I came in the front door because there was no parking, and I waited till somebody pulled out so I could pull in to get a parking space for this committee meeting. And I just think we need to be aware and stay aware of the fact that our facilities are not what they should be in order to, because the line was out the door, like someone said, and the staff here was great because they put up tents, tried to do everything to protect them because there was some rain, but still, our facilities are lacking. And that, I'm just making that statement so that we continue to consider the fact that we will need a bigger facility at some point in time, so we need to maintain that funding that we have that's contingent, or what do we call that?
The Building Reserve Fund.
Reserve fund. We need to make sure that whenever possible, we add funds to that reserve fund so that at some point we're able to accommodate the crowd that comes in. I mean, Rick should know, even in the building down in the Arlington Municipal Building, it stays pretty crowded. And I'm fortunate because I know there's parking on the other side of that building. Most people park in one area and that stays full. So that building better accommodates the number of people, and they staff them through pretty quick, as they do here. But still, I think only one time I've seen standing room only in that municipal building, and here I see it all the time. So I just wanted to interject that, to keep it in our thought process when we talk about the budget and where we put money for reserves.
I'll just say something since we're on, well, I had the screen up still. With the overall staffing changes of the reduction, we've given kudos to our residential team because they wear the brunt at this point in time, and we've talked about it a lot today. And the residential department shaved 10 people out of their department, yet still did the job exceptionally. And so, you know, we're talking about we don't give enough kudos, and we have today some, but they're doing it, and they're permanently giving up those 10 positions because they said internally, and their leader, Brian McKissick, now everybody's gonna know your name, said, I believe in my team. We can do it, and we can continue to do it, even though so many people are moving to this area. And so I think that it's amazing because there is, they've changed and reduced the workforce in almost every category throughout their department. And I think that's also a very strong statement about management and leadership with our chief appraiser, that they will look at the numbers really hard and say, can we do this? And can we promise that we'll continue to do this in the future? And they swore that they would, because we really questioned, we were like, are you sure that you want to do this? And they said, absolutely, because residential, I wrote down, big loss of people. Why? And are you sure? And they were very sure.
Joe, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Budgeting for the elections, did you calculate runoff, or is that assuming no runoff?
That's assuming no runoff. So
Okay.
the 800,000 is the current estimate.
Okay.
So if we go into a runoff, then it's, I think the estimate right now is about $1 million additional.
Okay.
So realistically, where would those funds come from if we went into a
Reserve
runoff?
fund.
Yeah, so that is something, we didn't discuss a runoff.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, so I'm glad, that was a good point. No, we did not.
Well, and, you know, we didn't stand on it the first time, so we had to,
He's talking
you know, lift it up from the ethos the first time.
And you'll have a copy of the reserve funds in your, on the papers on your desk. But we have 1.7 million that so far that's been put away into the litigation or the election reserve fund. And just as a reminder, with the reserve funds, previously we had a 90-day reserve that was separated by board policy. And so we keep that, and then we had reserve funds with dedicated purposes for them. I have never been comfortable with a general 90-day reserve fund. I wanted it committed towards something also, but still maintain 90 days, but then still have a little bit extra for the things we know we're gonna spend. But I just don't want y'all to forget that part of this is 90-day reserve. But we do have the money in the reserve fund that we could use if needed, without having to go back to the entities asking for more, because that would be the other option. Yeah, no, it's not good if you ask for more. Is there another slide? Okay. So overall staffing changes. So as Ms. Burgess was saying, residential is losing 5 people at this from their department. There's 1 from most of the other departments. Administration is showing 1 increase. We actually did remove 1, but we're moving 2, I call them ghost positions. They're basically, we put 2 Valtex and administration at $1. That way they're there in case we need them for in case we do realize later on in the year that we're like, whoops, we cut a little deep. We'll have a position already in the budget, it just won't be funded, and we can always reallocate some money, move it in there and fund it from someplace else, and then we won't be hurt. So it's more of a cushion, basically 2 unfunded positions that we can move as needed.
Joe
But-
Don, is that basically because if we add positions, then we have to go back to the taxing entities? But if we do it at this point, we're fine?
Yes, ma'am. So if we change positions and stuff, that we have to have that in our budget. The next slide, okay. The other thing I was gonna mention, well, Deputy Smouse has done an outstanding job for us, but I think he's about to, he won't be with us much longer. And then also the contract expires in August, I believe. And so right now we're proposing, but I don't know if we've highlighted in the budget, is that we've gotten bids from a couple different security agencies and City of Fort Worth. Is it?
Their association.
The City of Fort Worth Association. So what we've contemplated is moving to full-time security, armed security, which is quite a bit cheaper. And then during our busy season, we'd have the City of Fort Worth Police Officers Association come, and then we'd have 2 people on staff, one to be security, one to be an actual officer, but also be cheaper overall. And so that, I don't think that's been really highlighted, but I just want to point that out, just to be
Is there any
changed.
liability associated with that?
I'd have to check with one of the attorneys, but, I mean, oh.
So probably, without having looked at the contracts with whoever would be, but typically, you know, if you're a licensed peace officer and you're part of a force like the sheriff's deputy or the city, you're gonna have insurance and coverage for that kind of thing on the officers. I would assume the same will be true for private, for a private security system. The other thing is, you know, the laws of this state and this country are very favorable for our law enforcement officers. We give them the freedom and the ability to do the job the way they want to and the way that they need to. So it is difficult to sue a peace officer for civil damages unless they have really done something that is sort of beyond the pale. So there certainly is some risk of liability to it. My guess is that risk is mostly covered by the insurance of the people that we contract with, and even beyond that, I think it would be a remote situation that we would have a situation where we would have a real money damages issue.
So our responsibility would be to ensure that the liability associated with either one of those are either equal or greater than should we contract out.
Yes, and then if it's not covered by those, then we probably ought to make sure that it is a part of our insurance to make sure that those individuals and the entity itself is covered.
So then, is it really cheaper?
We'll validate. And, but yeah, it's even still, even with additional insurance, it should be cheaper. The security guard rates are quite a bit less.
When do we lose Mr. Smouse, Officer Smouse?
I believe in July.
Next month.
You stepped out, but I was telling them that we're gonna lose you before too long. And we really do appreciate your service. So
Is he retiring or leaving the force, or is just not?
well, I didn't want to
leaving us?
volunteer his information for him.
Are you leaving us, or just the force?
They allow him to retire.
Darn it.
I've heard that it's, they can do that. I don't know, I've never seen them either, but they allow him to retire.
The way it works out is on Tuesday, I will be 65, and on Friday will be my last.
You didn't mess around. Well, we'll miss you, definitely.
Whatever you do, stop at the front desk and make sure we know that you're 65 or older on your property.
It's a magical day. It's a magical day. Well played, Rick.
Oh, and if your spouse is too, register her as well.
All right, that concludes the presentation on the budget workshop. This will be on the August agenda for continued discussion and actual action at that time. Next discussion items, discussion B, proposed 27-28 reappraisal plan brought by Wendy Burgess and Gloria Pena.
You wanna go first, Wendy? Well, I wanted this on the agenda because we got emails, there's been publicity, everybody's talking about the reappraisal plan, and I felt that if we didn't get this on the agenda, to have an open discussion based on the information that we've received, that it would be a slap in the face to the public. I felt like the attention needed to be given to this item. There are areas that we received information. I even got calls from other counties asking me if what Chandler put on the YouTube was correct. I said, for the most part, yes, what he's telling you is correct. Now, we did get clarification, because initially the word was that there were 190,000 properties values that went down, but after another review was done, that included 60,000 of the people who have the homestead exemptions. Now, does it still impact them? In my opinion, yes. And that's because, you know, we were talking about the freeze, and the freeze may have helped some people. And why are we protesting it? Okay, if your property is inherited by your child, let's say, and you didn't protest the property value that whole time, then they're not gonna get the value that was decreased to begin with. That was my mindset. The other thing is that the equal and uniform issue was brought up. It's not equal and uniform based on what we've done now. There's no fairness and equity in all of that. One of our board members said that at some point in time, if we've discovered this type of information, we would pivot. I want to see us pivot because it's very necessary. The other thing is we received information. Rick sent out something at the last meeting, and he said, our duty is not to follow the loudest voice in the room. It is to follow the law, the data, and the long-term best interest of the people we serve. We don't need to hear the loudest voice because we certainly aren't hearing as many voices I would have hoped we had received from the people whose valuations went down. But we need to follow the law that requires us to do the equal and uniform adjustments for everyone. And we also, the data is there, it's telling us that, and it's in the long-term best interest of the people that we identify and react to this whole thing. Now, all the people that I've talked to in Arlington, except for one, all their values went down. So if I talk to 5 and one tells me his went up, is that fair? It's not equal. So my question is, what are we gonna do about it, folks? Because it's our responsibility as a board to make sure that everyone gets fair return on their buck. So that's basically why I wanted here. I wanted to have a discussion with the whole board involved, that we address this issue because it's here in our face and we can't turn away. At least if we do, we're being very disrespectful.
Okay, well, I will take it from there because I have some questions for staff, and then I have some comments as well. So, Joe, Don, and team, just have 3 questions. Based on the 2025 ratio study that we all received, single-family residential coefficient dispersion increased from 6.98 in 2023 to 10.14 in 2025, and the price-related difference increased from 1.01 to 1.04. Does staff agree that these numbers show the residential roll became less uniform and more regressive after the freeze or hold or whatever that we're calling it?
Yes, ma'am, that would be the general. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, do we know how many residential taxpayers were overappraised relative to market value or similarly situated properties because values were held rather than reappraised? Specifically, can staff confirm or explain the open records figure that approximately 190,000 or some number of taxpayers were harmed?
Based on the data that we had sent during the public information request from Chandler, the 190,000 does look correct. If you look at market value, if you look at the appraised value was limited by the homestead cap, then it was closer to 130,000.
Okay. Okay. So 130,000 people is still a lot of people. Final question is, did the 2 districts that failed the 2025 property value study fail because of single-family residential values, another category, or a combination of categories?
Technically, it'd be a combination, but primarily residential. It has the most weight.
Okay, thank you. So this is why I think that the board needs to focus less on whether the freeze was popular and more on whether it produced accurate, equal, and uniform values for all taxpayers. Based on the ratio study data, I do not believe that we can say that it did. In 2023, before the freeze, TAD's single-family residential values were centered on the market with a median ratio of 1. And we had done this for 18 years at least, I believe. The coefficient of dispersion, which measures how tightly appraisal ratios are grouped around the median, was 6.98. Price related differential, which indicates whether lower and higher valued properties are being treated uniformly, was 1.01. In 2025, after the freeze, those numbers moved in the wrong direction. The single-family median dropped to 0.97, the COD increased to 10.14, and the PRD rose to 1.04. The 2025 worksheet itself shows that the ideal COD range for a single-family residential property is 5 to 10, and the ideal PRD range is 0.98 to 1.03. In plain terms, so everybody can understand it, the residential roll became less uniform and more regressive, meaning higher valued properties were underappraised relative to lower valued properties. And that's why I asked, what is lower value? I think we need to establish that. That matters because the freeze did not help taxpayers evenly. The information we have indicates that approximately 65% of taxpayers benefited, but 32% were harmed, including the alleged 190,000 or however many taxpayers, 130,000 with the homestead, who paid more than their fair share. A policy that helps many taxpayers but harms a substantial minority is not true taxpayer protection. It shifts the burden from some taxpayers to others. This is also a school funding issue. The proposed 2027-2028 plan acknowledges that 2 districts did not pass the 2025 property value study. Even if there was no immediate funding loss due to the state's grace period process, that does not mean the appraisal roll was accurate or uniform. Annual reappraisal does not mean automatic increases. It means that we review the market every year and can increase the staff, can increase, decrease, or hold values based on actual evidence. I believe the board should seriously consider returning to annual residential reappraisal, or at a minimum requiring annual corrective reappraisal when ratio studies show inequity, so that that we protect all taxpayers and not just the majority, which apparently are high-value residences.
Can you repeat the percentage of number of households that benefited from the reappraisal plan?
Well, and that was according to what Chandler said. 65% benefited and 32 were harmed. However, if it has the change with what Jodon said with the homestead, I would ask the expert what percent actually benefited.
I'd have to do the math.
I know, math in public.
Would you say the majority of people have benefited from our reappraisal plan, Jodon?
Yes, a majority, yes.
Okay. And the larger priced homes pay significantly more in taxes.
Well, they should. They're valued
Right,
higher.
right. It's based on a percentage, so it is fair, and everyone can protest. So it's just interesting how you're spinning everything, but.
I think one of the questions is, if you look at the market value, the higher percentage, but you gotta remember the Constitution has the uniform and equity clause in it. So from the uniform and equity portion, how many people benefited, and I think that number's gonna end up being a lot lower. Do you have an opinion on that, Mr. Bobbitt?
Say that one more time.
From a market value standpoint, it benefited more people, but from a uniform and equal standpoint, would the numbers be the same, or would you think that less people actually benefited from a uniform and equal perspective?
I don't know if I'm answering your question exactly, but when people protest right now, they're typically not being reduced because of market value. They're being reduced because of equal and uniform equity issues. And so our equity numbers are out of whack, and so that's why we're lowering the values typically.
And just so I understand uniform and equal correctly, it basically means if I'm paying 70% of the value of my house, then my neighbor should be paying 70% of the value of my home, and it's to keep someone from paying 90% of the value there. Is that the
Yes,
point
sir.
of uniform and equal?
Basically.
Okay. I have a few more questions. Thank you, Ms. Pena and Burgess, for bringing this up. I've been doing a lot of research and studying on this, and you all got a packet of information, and I just want to quickly hit on it real quick. After the last meeting, I reached out to the comptroller's office to inquire about Grace, since there was some confusion. And regarding Azle and Carroll ISD, they will be studied in 2026. And it's assumed that since they failed 2025, and we haven't changed any of their values, that they will fail 2026. And they will not qualify again for Grace until 2031. And that's assuming that we are spot on in 2027. If Azle or Carroll do fail 2027, the district will be put into a TARP review. 3 consecutive failures by a school district will require the comptroller and the Texas Department of Licensing and Registration to get involved and evaluate our procedures. So I just want everyone to keep that in mind. When I spoke to a Mr. Rothstein down there, and he told me there's 1,551 school districts in the state, and of those, about 7.5% failed the property value study. 115 districts is what he said failed. So comments made last meeting about if we do our job correctly, a lot of these appraisal districts are trying to do their job correctly, and it's just the nature of the beast how the comptroller pulls data later after January 1st that can lead to this outcome. The other piece of information I've given you is it's the 2025 property value studies, family residential. If you go through it, the PRD numbers that Wendy brought up, there were 14 of them that fell outside. And of those 14, 5 are in the TARP program. So that's just something to keep in mind also. 2023, I just want to say that I went through this packet of information, and in 2023, Tarrant County was number 8 overall in uniform and equal out of every district studied. And we were number 5 overall in, I believe it was the residential portion. So we had excellent numbers. So for the coefficient of dispersions and the PRDs, is it your opinion that those changed because we did not appraise in 25?
Yes, sir. It affected it.
So that was year 2 because we froze in 2024. So we all know that 2027 is supposed to be reappraised. Would it, is this something that could happen in 2028? If we're not going to be studied if we pass 2027, correct? But if you were to do a study of it, would you anticipate that maybe something like this could happen?
Yes, sir. If we don't reappraise in 28, then I would expect that our numbers would get more skewed.
Okay. So I went to the comptroller's site, and they have these little informational one-page flyers that I printed off. So I want to read it, and then I have a question at the end. Just some of the highlights, and this is specific to appraisal district reappraisal plan. Under purpose, by law and as a matter of best practice, appraisal districts must have reappraisal plans to ensure effective use of resources to meet their statutory requirement of appraising property at market value as of January 1st each year. Then under planning a reappraisal, it says the basic motivation for reappraisal is to maintain equity. Without frequent reappraisals, overappraised property causes the owners to pay more than their fair share of taxes. Underappraised properties contribute to lower tax bases, causing the taxing units to set higher rates. And this is just a statutory requirement. The IAAO, which is the International Association of Assessing Officers, cautions that long intervals between reevaluations generally result in regressive assessments and violation of the uniformity principle. Continuing to use market factors from prior years without recalibrating them for current market creates value estimates that are hypothetical and risk violating the constitutional equal and uniform clause. So before my question, my one comment, Chairman Barnes, when you say about the number of protests, protesting is about equity, and it's making sure that each homeowner pays their fair share. So my question is for Mr. Tepper. Are we in violation of the uniform and equal clause of the Constitution? And I don't know if you can give that answer out here, but I would like an answer on it.
So yeah, I would not know the answer to that question without being able to and I say without being able to study the data. I'm not sure if I studied the data, I would even be able to understand it. But certainly I could work with the appraisal staff to look at what the data look like and give you an answer on that. The part that I will say out here is that there is a statutory definition of what equal and uniform is that is sort of separate and apart from just the constitutional language that says all taxation shall be equal and uniform. And probably if we are going to analyze whether or not we think the role in Tarrant County is equal and uniform or not, we ought to be using those statutory definitions that are in the tax code of it. But that's something that, like I said, I could work with staff to look at and come up with a formalized opinion that probably either way I would give you all an executive session. So
That was good lawyer speech.
that's what I do.
Good way to talk around that, Matthew.
Can you return to your comment where you emphasize the word each and read that line to us again?
This is what's on the comptroller
Yeah,
site.
I know where it is.
By law and as a matter of best practice, appraisal districts must have reappraisal plans to ensure effective use of resources to meet their statutory requirement of appraising property at market value as of January 1st each year.
Yeah, so it's an absolute misstatement, regardless of where you got it from, that it's a statutory requirement to do it each year. That is not at all what the law says. It says that they have to be done on January the 1st when they're done, and they have to be done at least every 3 years. So you can people can continue to emphasize the word each. Even legislators in Austin can continue to say you're required to do it, and we're flat not, and they're wrong in their comment every single time they say it.
So even if it's not each, it's still not fair and equitable.
I'm not
Okay.
arguing that point at all.
All right.
What I'm arguing is that this overemphasis about the word each is incorrect, if not an absolute lie.
I would agree. I mean, at 25.18, I believe is what we're talking about. It does not use the word each. I just wanted to bring the attention to the comptroller's
That brochure from the
wording.
comptroller's office does not overstep what the law says. So,
Unfortunately, the comptroller's manual is not up to date, and they don't have any plans to update it. That is why it's not referenced on our website.
yeah.
They told me themselves they're not planning to update it.
This was from February of 2025.
Okay, to go back to my statement, just to, so we all received a lot of emails about this subject, which is why I thought that it was important for us to have a discussion about it, because it was a large subject for the taxpayers and the public. And so us being the board, we are responsive to those, whether we answer each email or we discuss it as a whole board. So I thought it was important for us to do that. And there is a concern for a certain percent of the taxpayers, a certain number of the taxpayers. And if it's the less percent, if a lower percent of taxpayers matters less, but they were hurt and overpaid, and they were here speaking to you at the board, would you tell them that they really don't matter because they're in a lesser grouping? And I think that we're here to represent everyone as a whole, no matter what group that they're in, to ensure that we are following uniform and equal practices in our appraisal practices. And that was the discussion that I wanted to make sure that we had, was not to say you're in a winning group and you're in a losing group, you matter more than you do. I want to make sure that the taxpayers know that everyone matters. And we're going to look at it and we're going to talk about it until we figure out the best system possible. So that was my goal in the discussion today, was not to, and I know that you just look at me like with the look every time. Or
We're
that's
talking,
just-
I'm listening.
For the purpose of discussion.
For the purpose of discussion, because we've all received a lot
For
of
the purpose of
emails.
discussion, I got some rhetoricals to ask in the same way other rhetoricals are being asked. Could somebody define for me the word winners and losers when we're talking about appraisals? Or, don't want to use that one. Those that are harmed versus helped when it comes to appraisals.
Those that have paid more than their fair share, according to, what they should have?
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm just asking, because those are words that are thrown around constantly and including on videos that are online, and I don't understand.
I've never
how
made a
anybody
video
defines
online.
those words. They've been brought up multiple times in your presentation today.
I'll jump in and give an example, though.
Okay, yeah.
This phone costs $20. If I can buy this phone for $15, I'm a winner. If I pay $20 and the phone is now on sale for $15, I'm a loser.
I have no idea how much you want to pay for your phone, but I also know that if my
There's a
appraisal
penny in
goes
the
up, I'm a loser. If my appraisal goes down, I'm a winner.
So, I can
Right.
give you another example. After I go on our website periodically. I just wanna see what we're doing and maybe learn a little bit more, or, sometimes I find a problem and I call Joe Don and tell him I found a problem. But, I looked at my whole neighborhood and what our appraised values were. And come to find out, my neighbor across the street, whose house is almost as big as mine, pays $100,000, his value was $100,000 less than mine. And I think that his square footage, is maybe 200 square feet less than mine. So how did that happen? You know, was that fair? That means, and he also has the over 65 exemption, but why is his value so much less than mine? Was that fair?
So I would ask you, was the value of those two properties, were you looking at the value before 2025? So what was the was there still a discrepancy in 2023 and 2024 when we were, I think that matters when you're using that argument, because if you're using it just for this year when it wasn't reappraised, what was the data before that when we were reappraising it every single year?
Well,
Was
my
there
house
still-
has
was there
always
still a
been
discrepancy?
over my house is the largest one in my development. So my value is always the highest.
So then that wouldn't be a fair,
No,
that
but I
wouldn't be a fair
compared-
example, because.
If it's 200 square feet and he has more property than I do, he has more land, much more land than I do,
Right, so all of that information matters, but if we're reappraising it, if you're looking at the data from the reappraisals from every single year, but then just now using that example in a year that we didn't reappraise, it's not a fair, I just
Well,
don't.
this
I
is
mean,
the first year was that significant of a difference.
So how was it, so the appraisal changed from last year to this year?
For both of us. Mine went up, so a protest. I don't have access to what his was, or I didn't look for it. I just know that his value has gone down. I don't know why. I don't know how he did that.
My point is not to be argumentative. My point is that you will always have winners and always have losers in this business.
That's the
Period.
98%.
Huh?
That's the 98%.
It's just reality. You're always gonna have winners, you're always gonna have losers. If I look at my neighborhood and I see every house that's exact same square feet and they aren't exact same value, you got winners and losers.
But is it fair?
I don't know. I didn't ask you that. I'm asking you, do you have winners and losers? Yes or no?
Yes.
It's that simple.
But Rick, even on that,
So to talk about how we need to take care of the losers and not the winners, or take care of the winners and not the losers, that's not a viable reason to have a conversation about what the appraisal process ought to be. The appraisal process is way more technical than whether or not Fred won and I lost because we bought a cell phone for a different price, because I didn't go shop everywhere that he might have gone and shopped and got the cheap phone. That's just not how that's simple marketing. We can go to freshman level business school and learn how to do that. This is way bigger than that. Because my next question would be, how often should appraisals take place?
as frequent as possible.
But
I'll make a comment on that. In a fast-moving, heavily populated county such as Tarrant, in order to keep the equity, I think they need to be yearly. Whereas if you go to a slow-moving, less dense rural county, where you don't have as many sales, I think you can do less frequent appraisals. And I think I wasn't around when the law was written, but I would think that the intent of the legislature was to allow for data collection over those 3 years. So I just think heavily populated, to maintain equity, needs to be done yearly.
yeah, well, and I think you're using yearly because that's what some legislators decided to say, because if annually is better than every 3 years, is every 6 month better than annually?
Yes. Depends on when you collect taxes, in my opinion. And they
Alright, so-
collect them annually, so.
May I give an input?
Yeah.
I received 18 emails.
Yeah, not.
That's what I received, 18. Right now, there's 14 people watching us online. And for us as leaders to recommend a change as big as this over that type of response, I don't see it, and I'm not good for it.
Isn't that what we did when we created this, or you all created this reappraisal plan? Same thing, same volume.
No.
I had 35,000 people vote for me, and it was on this platform to make change and for us to get up here and say, no, it was better the way it was. It really was. Let's go back to it. I think it's ill-advised. That's just my opinion. I'm just one vote here.
That's why it is a discussion, and so the public can hear what your opinion is.
They heard it loud and clear when we advocated for this change. It's change.
They're,
Every good deed
yeah,
can go unpunished. There is a certain percentage that feels the change we made was ill-advised, and then there's another percentage that thinks, hey, those guys,
Well, they're-
it's in a better direction.
and in this process, we're educating them more.
Yeah, I like that. But again, asking to overturn a reappraisal plan over the volume of people we're hearing from, no.
So they
Matt?
don't matter.
Matt, if I can ask you a question. If we get legal advice that says we're in violation, would you consider a change at that point?
Well, we had legal advice in advance of making this change. And we had legal advice that's sitting right over here before we made this change. So, no, I don't know, has the law changed? I don't think so.
I
So, no,
wasn't
I
privy.
would go with what we did, and again, to insinuate that we didn't have legal advice going into this decision, it's just not accurate.
I'm not insinuating, I wasn't part of those conversations,
Fair
so.
enough.
Whenever the infamous video went out, I had no desire to respond to the video. My issue is to respond to the issue that's before us, not what some interpretation of that is. That said, our office did our own review of everything, and one of the things that we saw was a presentation to the entities on whatever date this presentation was, but it was after that, said that the market decrease in Tarrant County in 22 was 41,102 properties. 2023 was 23,009 properties. 2024 was 307,494 properties. 2025 was 203,815 properties. But then in 2026, only 15,073 properties. And to this minute, we don't understand why that was shared with the entities versus what was shared in the video. Can you respond?
That was, well, I think one of the board members asked for roughly that kind of data as far as the belief that appraisal districts never decrease their values. So it's always just an upward trend, and that if the market changes, we would never actually decrease. And so that was a query I pulled together to pull what our values had done in the prior years. And then I even queried the other MetroCads just to see what their historical things had done, just to show that if the market actually does go down, it may still have an average increase for the entity, but we're not trying to artificially hold values up if the market indicates they should decrease.
The reason it's a curious number is that the video suggested it was 190,000 that would have gone down, and this is only 15,000.
I think that the video is based on 2025. So this 26 is based on the current year and the data we have in the new system.
Which is actually what we ought to be talking about is the current year, not what happened in the past. So if we want to be honest at this table and have a conversation, the number's 15,000, not what was shared in the video alone.
Is that your updated information for us?
Yes, ma'am. I don't think I've rerun the query since that meeting.
So the last year's was frozen. This year's is frozen. So why wouldn't they be connected? Because you're saying 23,000 from the 2025, which means we still have the 130,000, and now we're adding the 23,000?
Which is my exact question I asked whenever the video came out. If we're actually frozen, why is there new numbers this year? Because we actually didn't freeze appraisals in this building. We simply have freezed appraisals that were shared with the homeowners.
So, but I just want a flat answer. Is it the 190 or 130,000 plus the 23,000
I'd have to
for
go
the
back-
2 years?
I'd have to go back and look at the query, because I think what it was based on was our calculated cost value. And so it's comparing 26 calculated cost to 25 calculated cost. So I don't think at this point I was comparing it to what our appraised value was or is that has been static and been sent out on the appraisal notices. It was just, what does our internal calculation compare from one year to the next?
So that would be the real question, because if you add it or you subtract it, that makes a big difference.
So is this discussion for information only, or is
Yes,
this action?
this is not, no
It's
action.
a discussion item.
That's why I just asked questions related to the information that we received on the 2025 appraisal district ratio study that was dated March 12th, 2026. So it is valid, recent information related to the coefficient dispersion and price-related differential, and that's why I asked the questions only related to this most recent document, to get the answers on that. And, you know, the public expects, you know, whether it's a portion of the public, you know, we've discussed things that, that were related to a portion of the public before also. So, I think every portion of the public matters, so. So I stick to, the information and the ratio study, and thank you for the answers.
Yeah, and don't misunderstand me, I think everybody matters in this conversation as well. One thing that is very curious about this is that when we went into the halfway through the process, we were looking into the future. And again, if you can look into the future, go bet on that horse that nobody would have bet on in the Kentucky Derby. If you're as smart as that some people act like they are and relate to the market, we went into it with an assumption that at worst, we would be, at best, worse, whichever way you want to say it, we would be flat in the current year. So I've done my own conversations with numbers of realtors out there in the real estate business too, and the quote that I was given was Tarrant County is in a mild correction plateau phase. Prices are slightly down or flat, while inventory is up, which is a supply and demand conversation. So you can find realtors that will say everything went down, and you can find 15 realtors that will say didn't go down at all, it's flat. We just didn't have as many high sales as we've had in the past. I don't know if that means California quit coming as much as they were because they were willing to pay anything you asked plus another 25% or what it was. So and in talking to the comptroller's office that I talked to, instead of getting whoever answers the phone when you call the 1-800 number, the comptroller's office has been surprised that it actually worked in Tarrant County. They've been surprised that it actually worked well in Tarrant County, to the point that they have advised on the governor's plan for the future, which is to actually go to a 5-year freeze for the very reasons that we did it for a 2-year freeze in Tarrant County.
Who did you talk to?
I talked to the comptroller himself.
Oh, the elected official. I didn't know if you talked to Shannon or any of the experts in the office.
Talked to the comptroller himself that runs the whole office.
The one that?
There is a comptroller in Tarrant County in the state of Texas, and his name's Kelly Hancock. And I talk to him once a week about something.
You know, I asked that question, it was one of the reasons I did not vote for that reappraisal plan. I asked the question, you're making assumptions that the values are gonna stay either level or go up, and you're protecting them. So what happens to the ones when the value goes down? And I was ignored. Now we're there.
In the past, in 2022, when y'all were talking about, yeah.
Yeah, and I did not vote for it because I was worried about that. I was worried about the impact it was gonna have on all the taxing entities. There were multiple things that I became concerned about as I read more and more of what was gonna be done. Because initially, I thought it might be a good idea, but when it came down to voting for it, I realized this was not a good idea.
Yeah. I don't agree. I mean, I don't disagree with your thoughts. Any other, yes?
So I just want to understand what the point of this discussion is, since y'all brought it up. I understand this is not an action item, but I do want to ask this real quick. So y'all who brought this up, what's the goal today? Like, what's the proposal? Let me understand clearly, if this was an action item, what would your proposal be?
I brought it as a discussion item because it's been brought to me by the public, an attention item, a concern item, not fair or equitable item, and that we would reconsider and redo the reappraisal plan so that it was fair and equitable to everyone. My point was to bring it, to listen to what you all said, so the public would also listen. This is not the board, the entire board that voted that in. There still is an opportunity to make some changes. I understand that you personally wanted to know if we could make minor changes just to those who were whose property values went down. But then it wouldn't be fair and equitable to the property values that went up. So that's not a possibility. We can't pinpoint groups and say, we're gonna redo you. So I just wanted the public to hear that it was a concern to at least a few of the board members of maybe possibly changing this so that it was fair and equitable. That was my point in doing it.
And I'll say, just since you asked, my point was taxpayers reached out and they wanted us to deliberate and discuss whether this was the best way moving forward, and so we have now.
So again, what's the proposal? Like,
There's
what
not a proposal, it's
Yeah,
a discussion
I
item.
understand, I know I said that, but ideally, okay, so there was a line that you said, I don't remember the exact verbiage, where you recommended yearly appraisal or the second part, an appraisal that factors in fair and equitable, or whatever that line was. So I want to know, when you said that, could you define that for me? What do you mean when you say that? Because I think that kind of gets to the root of what your ideal proposal is.
Fair and equitable is what taxation is based on.
Okay, you're not understanding, never mind.
No,
So,
I'm not going to.
What is it you wanna hear?
no, I want to hear what your idea
We're not saying
is.
what you wanna hear. Tell us what you wanna hear.
No, I want to hear what your proposal is. Like, are you just saying, hey, we need to just go to yearly appraisal, that's it? Or did you have something else in mind if this was an action item?
It wasn't an action item and we're discussing it and we've done it before on other things, so
What is it you wanna hear?
No, that's what I'm asking you. What is your ideal solution? Okay, that's the thing. What's your solution to this?
That we redo the reappraisal plan.
But to say what? Like, what do you want to
To
say?
make it fair and equitable to all concerned, which is all property owners.
And how do you do that? Like, just yearly appraisal, that's it?
If that's the best fair and equitable direction, yes.
So,
That's what the discussion is for the
Mhm.
board to make that determination. I know what I feel personally, but it's the board that makes the decision. I didn't vote for it last time,
Mhm.
so that tells you a lot.
right, and this is a point I want, and just to respond also to Callie's inquiry about what percentage would have benefited, based off Joe Don's last email that included the homestead exemption in those numbers, feel free to double check me, but my understanding, just basic math on that email, about 75% of properties, based off your criteria of benefited from what we did. So then the next question I have, I guess I'll direct this to you, Gloria. You mentioned that you talked with a lot of homeowners in Arlington, and most of them supposedly should have seen their appraisal gone down. So did you advise them, because there is a solution to this, did you advise them to protest their appraisal?
Every one of them. I even tell people who don't ask me to
And did
protest.
they do so?
Yes, they did.
So then,
And I asked them to continue to do it until, I'm not
So-
on this earth.
there's the solution. So then for them, for those individuals, what's the issue?
The
Their
issue-
problem's solved.
Well, not really.
They protested and, in theory, got whatever that value was, I would assume, what that value was going to be. So their problem is solved. And I think that's what we're missing here, is that there is a solution. So I view it two ways. You view it as, okay, we're ignoring the 25%, I guess. I view it as, okay, if we do an appraisal, there's 75% of homeowners who will be harmed by that action. I'm hurting 75% of them. I think there would be a different argument if this was more of a split issue, right? If we saw that only 50% of properties benefited, okay, then it's a coin toss. I could understand that argument. But a supermajority benefited from what we did. That's the way I view it. And then for the 25% or 20%, whatever that number is, if you protest your appraisal, you're where you should be in theory.
it'd just be an additional 200,000 people protesting. Y'all can handle that, right?
So what I'm hearing, and you could correct me, is those 25% don't count.
No,
They don't matter. That's
Please
what I'm hearing.
don't twist my
What it
words. No,
sounds
that's
like.
not what I said.
No, that's why I'm
What I
saying it.
said is there is a solution that we're not talking about, and that is to protest your appraisal. Because the other way around, if we view it the other way around, okay, if we did a reappraisal, 75% would have been hurt. And they can protest too, but it's a lot harder stop an increase than it is to get a decrease when you're protesting if it's a downward market.
If
So,
it's
I mean, just
frozen,
ask the
how does
people.
that happen?
Huh?
Can you tell me that? If we've already frozen it, does it matter that they got their protest in and it was accepted? Are their taxes gonna stay the same? Because the value, they may have devalued it, but if there's no reappraisal and the
Yes, it matters.
reappraisal
Yes, it
freezes.
matters.
That's what I'm saying, it
They
does
all-
matter.
Anybody that protests, their value went down. Now whenever they go into the system of adding the tax rate for whatever area they're at, it's gonna be at that new number. That's why everybody protests. You and I both do that everywhere we go. I tell everybody protest because the system is that flawed.
So the beauty of this discussion is that we have elections.
Yep.
And there you have it. You know, there's a handful of us that are going through, you know, an election that's countywide. And then, you know, the other, whatever percentage of us, you know, there's elections where the entities get to decide who sits up here with us and argues, we're just talking, we're deliberating, and again, it's a healthy discussion. And I do want to thank you guys for your preparation. You came to this discussion very prepared, and it's appreciated. But past that, I think we're at that point where we've discussed this enough, and maybe we can move on to the next topic.
I'm fine with that.
I want to say something. I didn't bring it, Eric, but if I had a proposal, my one proposal would be what I tried to do back in February, which is to take care of the school districts that fail the property value study.
And that's not uniform
But then
across
that
the board.
becomes not
And
fair
so-
and
Yeah,
uniform.
it's
And
not fair
that's-
and unequitable.
That's what
That
I'm
solves
saying.
everything you just mentioned if we did that. I'm not seeing how that solves
I
that.
have concerns about the equity portion of it, but realizing that this has been discussed several times. You know, I understand where we are, but you asked the question, and I'm just telling you what.
So I'm going to piggyback on that. I didn't bring this up either, and I'm exactly with Eric. My concern is that we said we would do something about it, talking about school board specifically. We clearly have, as you showed here, we have invalids and 2 that must pass. At what point, board, do we let them totally fail? I mean, is there a point that we say, okay, you know what? You're right, Fred. Now 3 have totally failed and losing funding. Maybe we should relook at this.
And my answer to that is I think whoever, I don't know who was here to make this decision or not. I can't remember who was this, I wasn't here.
Neither was I.
But they set it up in such a way that those groups are gonna get reappraised before they fail. That's happening in 2027, which is a whopping 6 months from right now.
But I guess my point is, should they fail, do we reevaluate
Reevaluate what?
this
The
approach of
process?
not doing annual?
Well, we're gonna have to reevaluate that anyway. This process, this current policy goes through 2027 right now. We're gonna be having this conversation again to figure out what should the future be.
That's why I thought it was a
But
good time
I
to
think that those
discuss.
who, I don't think this is a bad,
No.
I don't think this has been a bad discussion at all. Eric, I think what those that brought it to us, they're wanting us to talk about it. They're wanting to talk out loud and have an open conversation about it. And we can't do that because we have all kinds of laws about how we can't get
Right.
together and have conversations. So this is about the only place we can get together and have those conversations adequately. And so I think it's been a good conversation. Then when we start going into, well, they're gonna die, I mean, you know, their whole school district's just gonna go. No, it was set up specifically. There's gonna be another appraisal before they get to that point. That's just the reality of that. If they even get that far, that's still a big if.
Hazel and Carroll are there next year
Yeah,
if we
and-
do incorrectly,
They will fail.
they will fail.
Okay, so 50% of those don't give a flip what any of this means.
So I guess just my last comments about it. It's like I said before, you know, I know there's no proposal, there's no action today, but I think the concerns are premature, like I said, and then the points you're making, to me, it just seems like we're trying to throw out the baby with the bathwater here, right? I'm definitely open, of course, to any discussion. Like Chairman Barnes said, this was a good discussion. I do appreciate it. If you have ideas, you know, I'm always open to hearing it. I'm open to ideas that maintains the spirit of appraisal relief while relieving your concerns. I always am. That's the final point that Chairman Barnes just touched on here is a lot of this discussion, believe it or not, is a moot point. Because we've got a governor right now campaigning on a plan that's going to take the discussion out of this room completely. And that's really where I think the discussion needs to be had. I think that's our opportunity here to advise policymakers on what our experience has been.
And I don't want you to misunderstand what I did say about that. We've got a governor that's campaigning on it. He's still got to get himself elected to do it, and he's got to convince the legislature to do it. And Lord knows if any of that's going to happen. So we got a long ways to go if that's going to be the reality. I'm just saying that the comptroller is actually supporting that plan and used his own home county as an example of where it worked. Ms. Burgess, do we have anything else from either one of you? Y'all brought this to us.
No, hopefully we'll get more input from the public. And voting is one of those ways too, right?
Well, and I would hope that the information we get from whomever in the public is actually legit and upfront and not utilizing the numbers to say what they want the numbers to say versus what they might actually say, which did not include 2026 that went all the way down to 15,000 properties from the 190,000 freaking properties. Thank you for bringing this up. Good conversation. And if there's not objection, I'm going to move this forward. We have number 5 is consent agenda, 2 action items. Consent agenda, first one is approval of minutes. Second is the approval of the 2-year extension of primary banking depository agreement. I'm going to move for approval for 5A and B. Is there a second? There's a second. Is there any further discussion on 5A or B consent agenda? Hearing none. Are we voting online? I mean on whatever this thing's called.
It hasn't come up yet. To show. Here, hit show voting.
Mine
I
hasn't
hit
shown
show
up.
voting, but it doesn't, oh.
What'd you hit?
I hit-
Mine's not. Oh, up here. Okay.
I just guessed.
I don't see, nothing's popping up on mine.
Get them
Oh,
all
there
now?
we go. Okay. You got it, okay.
I've hit it 4 times.
What are you
I'm
hitting?
just gonna keep-
What are you hitting?
Hit the left
Are you
side.
hitting a 4? He's a 4.
Hit it with your finger.
Oh, boom, it got in.
Next item is item 6A, which is an action item, order to accept ARB declinations and resignations, removing eligible members and appoint ARB secretary for January 1st, 26 through 12/31/27. Previously appointed secretary has declined the appointment. See attached letter.
Since the committee recommended, is that the move to approve?
Matt, you got something on this?
No, that's how we'd like to move forward.
Okay. So is this a public comment? Is there any public?
Nobody signed up for
No
it.
sign up for public comment. Is there a motion then?
I thought the committee made the motion and I'll second it.
The motion has been made to do something.
Approve. Oh, gotta vote.
Orders to accept ARB declination. Okay, yeah, I got it. Please vote. 6B, staff recommendation, approve orders as recommended by the subcommittee, discuss and act to change the appraisal review board per diem to $200 per day, $100 for a half day, with ARB chair receiving an additional $20 per day, $10 half day. Texas Property Tax Code, Section 642C states, members of the board are entitled to a per diem set by the appraisal district budget for each day the board meets, and to reimburse for actual and necessary expenses incurred in the performance of board function as provided by the district budget. The current per diem per diems vary greatly and change daily. The standard is 105 per day, panel chairman 205 per day, ARB secretary 225 per day, ARB chairman 240 per day. You have a per diem chart on your screen or wherever it is you're looking. Staff there is no staff recommendation on this one.
So per our committee, we recommend no, that not be approved.
Is that what this does?
So is there a motion in favor of 6B?
The committee made the motion.
We made the motion.
To, no change, basically.
No change.
Well, then there is no motion. Is
There's
there,
no vote.
you don't make a negative motion. Is there a motion, is there a motion on 6B? Hearing none, we move.
I have a question before we move on. The no change, is that from the current? Because we tabled it at the last meeting. So is that from the current pay or is that from this new pay scale that?
It's from the current.
And it's presented that way for the budget as well.
So, seeing no motion, we will continue to pay as we have in the policy right now. 6C, that's right, 6C. Authorize chief appraiser to enter a master agreement for business airplane audit services for tax year 2024-26 with Aviation Capital Partners LLC with options to renew for successive terms of 1 year each for up to 3 years. Enter into 3 interlocal agreements with Alliance, Arlington Municipal, and Meacham Airports to provide reimbursements to eligible taxing units geographically aligned with these airports. I'm gonna ask Joe Don to elaborate on this one just a minute.
We do have the vendor Neil Butari here to expand if you have any questions. What this project does, we expect roughly $30 million in tax levy that is of aircraft. These are typically charter aircraft that are in the county. They intentionally evade taxation by registering in Delaware and trying to hide their assets. And so we typically use FAA logs to determine what aircraft are in our county. But you can hide your tail number. There's ways to circumvent the data that we have access to. STR is an expert in aviation. They're from that industry. They understand how to find these assets, and they understand how to value them. And so they can bring these assets back to us, add them to the roll, go through the appeal process with us, and then once it finally makes it to the tax office, then the entities actually collect that money. We would get a bill from the vendor. We would take that vendor and split it up to the entities based on their tax rate, and actually charge the entity from the additional revenue that was generated. So it's really no risk or very limited risk. Any money that's captured is used to pay for the project itself, but it's basically a 12-to-1 return. So the total fee that we're estimating is $2.8 million, but it would generate $37 million for those 9 entities that have the 3 airports, or at least it's expected to. They still have, the taxpayers would still have the ability to file an appeal and actually argue the value of their property or try to prove that they actually don't have situs in Tarrant County. Travis County has started this, and they're seeing like a 6-to-1 return through the appeal process, but still, 6-to-1, that's a lot of additional revenue that's just kind of free. Our original intent was to do this through interlocal agreement. That way, the 9 entities that get the reward or the revenue would be the ones that help pay for it and reimburse our budget. The city of Fort Worth and Tarrant County, the staff that we've talked to had initial concerns because it's outside of the normal budget process that we normally go through. And so they had concerns with that. And so what we'd be recommending is that if we can get the participating entities to agree for each airport, then you would allow me to enter an agreement with them, and then they could go forth, and then we can start the project. If we can't get them to agree, then in August, we'd bring this back to y'all for discussion as to add into the budget for 2027. But it's a 10% hit to our budget, and all 73 entities would get a piece of that as far as the cost, but they wouldn't get the benefit. Only these 9 entities would get the benefit. And so Yes, ma'am. It seems like an easy call, but I know they have concerns with the funding. I did speak with Matthew Tepper about it just because it is outside the normal. But I believe Travis County might have been the first one to do this reimbursement arrangement. So overall, we think it's a benefit for the entities.
So I asked you a question, but I want to ask it again on behalf of our public and record. First off, I think this is a fabulous idea, but they don't get charged unless they get results, and it's basically a 12-to-1 in favor of them, right?
Yes, sir.
And then my second question I asked you, which I need to ask for the record, is that this is not necessarily an ongoing thing, because maybe they capture a lot of money in year 1, but in year 2 they don't capture as much, so that fee goes down, right?
Yes, sir.
So,
And so this is 3 years of omitted property essentially from the tax roll. And so it'll be added, it'll be a large amount. And then going forward, those properties would still be on the tax roll, those aircraft. There's a maintenance fee in the contract that's like $40,000, I believe, for just ongoing paperwork, just handling the renditions and stuff from those entities going forward. But there would still be a collection fee, so any new aircraft they find in future years would have a similar funding model, well, at least we would get billed for it, and that would just be absorbed into our normal budget process. But from their initial estimates, if we initially find $37 million in levy, it'd be roughly 20 million or 20% of that going forward.
right.
So the $2.8 million that we would expend for the product to be 20% of that going forward that we might need to put into the 27 budget.
And this is values that we don't currently have, nor the entities currently have.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, hats off to you on your roadshow of getting this approved. But it's a good idea.
Yes, sir.
Well, so are you saying that they're not paying taxes anywhere it's considered a property, like, okay, because I don't know what's normal for this.
These are typically charter aircraft, so they're
Okay.
business use, they're not personal use. If y'all have any friends that have aircraft for personal use, those wouldn't be taxed or added.
Okay.
It's
So
only.
this is business
Yes,
that
ma'am,
are
this
in
is-
Tarrant County?
Yes, ma'am. And
Okay.
it's not American Airlines. The big guys do what's correct and they
Okay.
render to us. These
Okay.
are typically charter aircraft or mixed use, and they intentionally register them in Delaware even though they are always pretty much here in Tarrant County.
They hide them.
Okay. So you're wanting them to report to us who's coming and going?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And so, we would get a report from STR that shows these are the aircraft that have situs here and how much time they spend in Tarrant County. So if they're flying around, we can see that, and then we can see how much is actually attributed to Tarrant County.
Okay.
Mr. Crawl.
Okay.
I think it's a great idea. My question would be, you had mentioned the appeal process, so we value it at this and then they appeal it. The fee isn't contingent upon that initial. Would it go lower if the appeal was to lower the value?
I'm not sure. Neil, do you want to come up?
To answer your question, the final value is based off of whatever the final appeal value is. So it doesn't do me any good to throw out a number that doesn't make any sense. Like to say a plane's worth $5 million, then they come back and it's actually worth $1 million. That just puts a bad taste in everybody's mouth. So we have certified appraisers, Texas certified appraisers, that only do aircraft in Texas, and they will manage this account. So they have thousands and thousands of aircraft appraisals that they do. So we look at sales data, we pull market comps from across the state, across the nation. So instead of just using a generic blue book that could put that airplane at 1.5, we pull market comps and we pull other market data that says actually that plane, based off of what things it has on it, other conditions, blue book is probably a little high, it's probably worth 1.3. And then the value will be set at 1.3. They get the rendition, they have every chance to formally appeal, go to ARB, and then we fully defend it all the way through completion. So that's our job, is to make sure that they're accurately and fairly valued, not only across Texas, but here in Tarrant.
So they go to an ARB when they want to appeal, and then they have the same path to go to the comptroller's office past that if they, because again, these are all gonna be in LLCs, all of these are.
Correct.
So
Since you're at the podium, can you tell us any other success stories or other counties you've done this with?
Travis County was the first call that Jodan made, but we really started in Tom Green was the first one. We work in Webb County, Williamson County, Zavala, a handful of other ones. But the biggest picture is the metro areas. As you can imagine, that's where the largest, most valuable aircraft are. And it's the most opportunity for them to kind of use these evasion tactics.
What are those evasion tactics? Are they,
He's asking for a friend.
At the very surface level, the easiest thing to do is register your plane wherever you want. When you register with the FAA, the FAA doesn't really care where you register. It's essentially where do you want your mail to go. So you can register in Delaware. You can go right now and go to DelawareAgent.com, and for $75, and on paper you're going to look like a Delaware agency. So Montana, Delaware, Florida, wherever there's not property tax. And then there's other, without getting way into the weeds, there's other things that they intentionally do to make it difficult for his office to find. And without our technology, our support, and our just relentlessness to find them.
you guys taking pictures? Are you using drones? How are you, what are you doing?
All the above.
Yeah.
All the above.
Good.
Yes.
Well, I just had a quick question. Because it's a plane, I mean, it could be parked in a different place more often next year or the next year. And so how do you, it seems a little big government to me, so I'm trying to understand.
Sure.
How this
Well,
works.
you have to, there's three things you have to measure when you're looking at personal property. There's situs, nexus, and domicile. And all three of those things play a role into what makes that asset taxable at the time. So you look at it as of January 1 to determine the value. And then historically, you look at the previous year's activity to determine where that plane is based. So with aircraft, they have various exemptions that they can use. So a business asset has the ability to allocate their value. So if the plane worth $1 million and they spend 50% of their time here in Texas, they would actually get a 50% reduction in their taxes. If they spend 100%, they would pay 100% of their value. And that goal is to pay based off how much they use Texas, specifically Tarrant County. So we go through that entire process as well. We will value the plane, we'll give them the right allocation formula, deal with the agents, go back and forth in terms of informing values, and then allow them every opportunity to protect and defend that value. But most of the time, the aircraft owners are pretty withholding in terms of the information, which puts their staff at a big disadvantage. And they kind of, aircraft owners normally tell part of the truth, which can sway what that value looks like. When we have all the answers in front of us, we can clearly define and defend whether it's taxable or not. So it eliminates the ambiguity.
Okay.
Any other questions? Wow, okay, Ms. Burgess, go ahead.
So thank you. You've already answered one of my questions about who has used your services, Tom Green and Williamson, Zavala, counties like that. You don't have any counties that have multiple airports like we have here in Tarrant yet, do you?
No, Austin.
Austin.
Travis County.
Okay.
And you guys actually have a lot of airports, but many of them
Yes.
are like helipads, hospital systems that aren't going to be taxable anyway.
Right.
So we've already gone through that filtering process and identified that these are the three largest ones. And actually, interesting enough, DFW is right on the border.
Right.
And as we analyzed it, there's no commercial, there's no business activity there. It's all commercial. So that one, as we started looking at it, we're like, oh man, it's right there. But there's no taxable assets that are doing what we're talking about.
Right, but Meacham, Arlington,
Spinks.
And Spinks, yeah.
Alliance is included, right?
Yes.
Spinks is the one in Burleson that we haven't added. We'll have to look at it and see if there's enough stuff out there.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Okay. And then my other question is, what ROI have you realized for your existing customers?
Anywhere from 5 to 12 to 1, depending on how they choose to pay for it. This is a unique opportunity that allows us to focus the revenue on the entities that will be benefited from it. In my personal opinion, I think it's a good way to do it because the other 70 entities don't get any value because the taxable value goes to the situs location of the airport. And I think when you look at it, I think from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense. And this is pretty fair for everybody.
Okay, and I apologize because I did not read the contract. Is there a 30-day opt-out?
I don't think there's a 30-day opt-out, but you have termination clauses built in. I believe it's 90 days.
90, okay.
Once we get rolling, just in terms of time frame, like if we started today, it's gonna take me and my staff time to spool up, and we'll be
Sure.
making delivery probably in the first 60 days.
Okay.
And then as soon as we do that, you know, ARB process and everything will be a lengthy process. So I would expect revenues to start hitting banks probably in the 6-month range, 180-ish days. That's typically what we see, depending on how many appeals we get.
So do you do this nationwide?
Yes, depending on where the taxes.
What states are doing this themselves and what counties are doing this themselves? Because that's where this is gonna be added.
Every state and
Giving
every.
the government a chance to grow their.
Sure. Everyone does it at various levels of efficiencies. The challenge is that how many people are doing it is really specific as to the owners, the assets, the location, and then how diligent each entity is. And one of the things we talk about with Joe Down and their staff, this is not an issue with the staff. They are doing everything that they can with what they have. The issue is that the information they have is not as good as the information that the owners have. So this is kind of leveling the playing field. Like you said, we're aviation professionals. We've been doing this a long time, so we know what rocks to look under, and we know when their lies are lies to be able to defend you guys.
I move that we approve 6C. There's multiple seconds. Any further discussion?
Sorry, quick question. You might have answered this. In the event that you accidentally pick something up that doesn't qualify, you're not supposed to, what's the process for them to get that corrected?
Say that again, what, for the taxpayer or for?
Yeah, so like, if you pick up, you know, something that's not based here, like that should not qualify by accident, and they know it, like, what's the process for them to fix that?
They file an appeal. They file an appeal with us, and normally those are done very quickly, informally, and then if our data proves one way or the other, that we can recommend to go to board or not. So they get every appeal process like everybody else.
Hearing no further discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Oh, wait, go on here, and we don't do that. We quit.
That
doing
was
it.
awkward.
We quit doing it last year. Everybody else
Did we
quit
or didn't we
15 years
vote?
ago. You good?
Well, she already voice voted once.
Eric, just a suggestion to you is get your plane to Tyler as soon as you can. We do not have any information to go to executive session, so that clears out 7 and 8. Is there any further discussion on any item before us today? Hearing none, our next meeting is on August the 12th at 9 a.m. here. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
It's been moved that we adjourn. All in favor say aye.